I want to tell you the story of two African ladies that are considered to be the most revered female martyrs in Christian history. This story is one I should have told a while ago, but whenever I begin scripting or planning for it, tears won't let me. But thankfully I can tell it today. This is the story of Perpetua and Felicity. Perpetua was born into a wealthy family in Carthage, North Africa, that is present-day Tunisia. This was about 100 years after John the Beloved had died, and so Rome was still the world power and Carthage was one of their colonies. Perpetua's father was a pagan and so was her husband. However, her mother was a Christian and she found herself drawn to the religion of the Christians. Due to how the world worked at that time, it was not out of the norm for wealthy people to own slaves, and so Perpetua had a slave named Felicity who was also a Christian. Nevertheless, beyond the slave-master dynamic, Perpetua and Felicity were actual close friends, and Perpetua could confide in Felicity. In 203 AD, both of them were arrested alongside other Christians for their faith, and they had to endure very horrible conditions. Remember, Perpetua came from a wealthy family and her father didn't want any of this. He came to the prison to plead with her multiple times to renounce Jesus, not just for herself alone, but for the child she was breastfeeding, but she was unflinching in her faith. So she, her child, Felicity, who was also pregnant, and other Christians were put into a prison. The conditions were so unbearable that Perpetua even had to bribe one of the guards to move them to a different prison. And so she had to deal with the prison conditions and also her breastfeeding cycle. Note, at this time, Perpetua was just 22 years. As the day for the execution drew closer, Felicity became very anxious, not because she didn't want to give her life for the cause anymore, but because she was worried. There was a law in Rome at this time that forbade them from executing pregnant women. And so she was worried that she might not have the opportunity to die alongside the other brethren. I tell you, these Christians were built different. In fact, this anxiety was so intense that she and the prisoners began conducting prayers to make sure she gave birth before the time. Eventually, she gave birth to a baby girl before the day of execution, and on that fateful day, they were released into the amphitheater. The crowd began chanting, declaring that they should be scourged first. This is what a scourge looks like. And this is what the body of someone who was scourged looks like. Wait, it's graphic, so I'm going to give you 3, 2, 1. And so they were scourged and then they let the beasts out. I'm talking wild pigs, leopards, bears, wild cows. These animals injured them seriously, and by the end of it, most of them had given up the ghost. However, these two ladies were still alive, and so they were sentenced to be executed by the sword. The person that was assigned to Perpetua was a novice, and so he couldn't end her life with the first strike. So you see, his mistake with the first strike caused her so much pain. In fact, it was so intense that she had to guide his hand to her neck so that the next one would be final. And that was how Perpetua and Felicity went to be with their Lord.